What you pay for tomatoes could skyrocket when an agreement between the United States and Mexico on the price of tomatoes ends tomorrow night.
With nearly 70% of U.S. tomatoes coming from across the border, this decision could have a ripple effect far beyond farms, pushing up prices and thinning supply.
With tariff talks top of mind, South Florida farmers say they're in trouble. Crops are rotting on the vine, and they're blaming the ongoing trade wars and immigration changes.
It comes as the Trump administration has also announced new tariffs that could raise the price of tomatoes at the grocery store.
This morning, the trade war is now impacting tomatoes. A new policy kicks in today, making way for a 21% price hike on tomato imports.
Crazy, everybody was in here buying tomatoes, you know, and with the economy the way that it is, if you're saving a few pennies and you're supporting local, that everybody wins in that situation. The customer wins, it brings us business, so we're selling more product.
The United States, long considered the dominant force in the North American tomato market, is facing a moment of reckoning. By 2026, analysts warn that America's long-standing tomato empire could lose its leading position as Canada and Mexico rapidly expand production, strengthen supply chains, and reshape how tomatoes are grown, traded, and consumed across the continent. Tomatoes are one of the most widely consumed vegetables in the world, a staple of diets from fresh salads to processed foods, sauces, and ready meals. In the United States, tomatoes are not only a dietary cornerstone but also a multi-billion-dollar agricultural industry, supporting tens of thousands of jobs across farming, processing, transportation, and retail. For decades, U.S. growers, particularly in states such as Florida and California, have set the pace for production, innovation, and market influence. But the foundations of that dominance are beginning to shift. Across North America, a convergence of economic pressure, climate stress, labor challenges, and trade disputes is reshaping the tomato market. At the same time, Canada and Mexico are advancing aggressive strategies that could redefine the balance of power by the middle of the decade. For American growers, the warning signs have been building for years. Rising production costs have steadily eroded profit margins. Labor shortages have intensified, particularly in labor-intensive crops like tomatoes, where harvesting and handling require skilled workers. Immigration policy changes, tighter labor regulations, and competition from other industries have made it increasingly difficult for farms to secure reliable seasonal labor. Climate change has added another layer of uncertainty. California, the largest tomato-producing state in the U.S., has faced prolonged droughts, heat waves, and water restrictions. Florida, another key producer, has contended with hurricanes, flooding, and plant disease outbreaks exacerbated by warmer, wetter conditions. These environmental pressures have increased costs while making yields less predictable. At the same time, energy prices, fertilizer costs, and transportation expenses have risen sharply. Greenhouse gas regulations, while aimed at environmental protection, have also added compliance costs for producers. For many U.S. tomato farmers, the economic equation has become increasingly difficult to balance. Against this backdrop, Canada and Mexico have been moving in different but complementary directions. Canada's rise in the tomato market is driven largely by technology and capital investment. Over the past decade, the country has poured resources into large-scale greenhouse agriculture, particularly in Ontario, British Columbia, and Quebec. These high-tech greenhouses allow tomatoes to be grown year-round in controlled environments, insulated from extreme weather and seasonal limitations. Using advanced climate control systems, artificial lighting, and precision irrigation, Canadian producers can deliver consistent quality and supply regardless of external conditions. While greenhouse production is energy-intensive, investments in efficiency and renewable energy have helped offset costs. For retailers and buyers, the appeal is clear: predictable volume, uniform quality, and shorter supply chains. Canada's proximity to major U.S. population centers has also become a strategic advantage. Tomatoes grown in southern Ontario can reach supermarkets in the northeastern United States within hours, reducing spoilage and transportation costs. As concerns about food miles and supply chain resilience grow, this proximity has taken on new importance. Mexico, meanwhile, has expanded its dominance through scale, cost efficiency, and climate advantage. With favorable growing conditions in regions such as Sinaloa, Baja California, and central Mexico, producers can harvest multiple crops per year. Lower labor costs and a well-established export infrastructure have allowed Mexican tomatoes to remain highly competitive on price. Over the years, Mexico has also invested heavily in protected agriculture, including shade houses and greenhouses, improving quality and extending growing seasons. The result is a steady flow of tomatoes into the US market, particularly during winter months when domestic production is limited. Trade policy has played a significant role in shaping this competitive landscape. For decades, tomato trade between the US and Mexico has been governed by a series of agreements designed to prevent dumping while maintaining market access. These agreements have been repeatedly renegotiated, often amid political pressure from US growers who argue that Mexican tomatoes are unfairly undercutting domestic prices. While these disputes have led to tariffs and minimum pricing rules at various points, they have not stopped the overall growth of Mexican exports. Instead, they have added uncertainty for US producers while encouraging Mexican growers to further diversify markets and improve efficiency. Canada's role has been less contentious but no less impactful. Free trade agreements and stable diplomatic relations have allowed Canadian tomatoes to enter the US market with minimal friction. As American retailers seek reliable suppliers, Canadian greenhouse producers have increasingly been seen as a safe and dependable option. By 2026, industry analysts predict that these trends could converge into a tipping point. US tomato production, already under strain, may struggle to keep pace with demand, particularly outside peak growing seasons. Imports from Canada and Mexico are expected to continue rising, capturing a larger share of the market. For American consumers, this shift may not be immediately visible on supermarket shelves. Tomatoes will still be abundant, prices may remain competitive, and quality may even improve. But behind the scenes, the structure of the industry could look very different. For US farmers, the implications are profound. Smaller operations, already operating on thin margins, may find it increasingly difficult to compete. Consolidation could accelerate, with larger agribusinesses better positioned to absorb costs and invest in technology. Some growers may switch to other crops, while others may exit farming altogether. There is also concern about food security and resilience. While imports provide flexibility, reliance on external suppliers carries risks. Supply disruptions, border closures, or geopolitical tensions could expose vulnerabilities. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted how quickly supply chains can be disrupted, prompting renewed debate about domestic production capacity. Supporters of increased greenhouse production in the US argue that America could follow Canada's lead by investing more heavily in controlled environment agriculture. Such systems could reduce reliance on seasonal labor, improve water efficiency, and stabilize output. However, the upfront costs are significant, and energy requirements remain a challenge. Others argue that policy reform is essential. Advocates for US growers are calling for labor policy changes, infrastructure investment, research funding, and trade enforcement mechanisms that level the playing field. Without such measures, they warn, the US risks losing not just market share, but expertise built up over generations. From Canada's perspective, the expansion of tomato production is part of a broader strategy to strengthen food self-sufficiency and agricultural exports. Greenhouse tomatoes have become a flagship success story, demonstrating how technology can overcome climatic limitations. Yet Canadian producers are also mindful of risks, including energy costs, labor availability, and environmental concerns. Mexico's producers, too, face challenges. Climate change is affecting rainfall patterns and water availability, particularly in arid regions. Competition is increasing, and pressure to improve labor conditions and environmental standards is growing. Still, Mexico's entrenched position in the US market gives it a strong foundation moving forward. Beyond North America, global tomato markets are also evolving. Advances in greenhouse technology are spreading to Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. As year-round production becomes more common, traditional growing seasons are becoming less relevant. Competition is no longer just about geography, but about efficiency, sustainability, and reliability. Environmental considerations are increasingly shaping the future of tomato production. Water scarcity, pesticide use, and carbon emissions are under scrutiny from regulators and consumers alike. Greenhouse systems offer advantages in water efficiency and reduced chemical use, but their energy footprint remains a concern unless renewable sources are adopted at scale. Retailers and food companies are responding to consumer demand for transparency and sustainability. Where and how tomatoes are grown is becoming part of the marketing narrative. This shift may further favor producers who can demonstrate environmental responsibility alongside consistent supply. As 2026 approaches, the question is not whether the tomato market will change, but how quickly and how dramatically. The United States still has significant strengths: vast agricultural knowledge, research institutions, and a large domestic market. But maintaining leadership will require adaptation. For Canada and Mexico, the opportunity is clear, but so are the responsibilities. Dominance brings scrutiny, and success must be balanced with sustainability, fairness, and resilience. Ultimately, the story of tomatoes is a microcosm of broader changes in global agriculture. Climate change, technology, labor dynamics, and trade politics are reshaping how food is produced and distributed. Long-established hierarchies are being challenged, and new models are emerging. Whether the United States can reinvent its tomato industry, or whether Canada and Mexico will firmly take the lead, remains to be seen. What is certain is that the humble tomato has become a symbol of a much larger transformation, one that touches economics, politics, and the daily lives of millions of people. From the greenhouses of Ontario and the fields of Sinaloa to the farms of California and Florida, the race to supply North America's tomatoes is intensifying. The outcome will shape not only who grows the food, but how resilient and sustainable the system will be in the years ahead.